Vamos a empezar con el primero de ellos, que vive en Seattle y está haciendo su paseo por toda la península ibérica y os va a contar por qué. Voy a cambiar al inglés para presentarle, aunque estoy segura que él entiende el español, pero él es he's the managing director at Mossy Ventures, and he's here to speak about building new startup investors in local ecosystems around the world. He's been working on this program for 10 years. Here he is. He's John Sechrest.
Sechrest.
Thanks so John.
Much.
John Sechrest. Give him a big round of
you.
applause. Here he is. Finally, Astrid, finally, we got him on stage. So the stage is yours, and the streamers as well. Enjoy.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you so very much. So, slides. I'm John Sechrest, and I've been working on a program to try to drive things forward in ecosystems. And at the beginning, I want to talk about all of us. Who are we here? So some of us are investors. How many people are investors? Raise your hands. Yeah? And how many people are startups? Raise your hands. And so we spend a lot of time, some people raise their hands twice. We spend a lot of time working on the question of how we get those people together and then how we evolve them into a strong ecosystem. And I want to talk about the program that we've been running, the Startup Investor Accelerator, which is a program that we've been doing as a local activity in Seattle, but now that we've been driving it a little bit further. And so when we look at the state of the ecosystem, a lot of people will say, I talked to an investor, the investor says, there's just not enough deals in this ecosystem. So I'm looking around Granada, I just can't find any good deals. And then you talk to the entrepreneurs and they say, there's all these great companies and I just can't find enough enough capital. So if we can't find enough capital and we can't find enough good deals, then what's going on? Maybe they're both right. Maybe there's not enough good capital going where it needs to go, and maybe there's not enough startups that are asking the right things. And what we need to do when we do that is to get more startups writing better presentations, engaging, and otherwise doing a good thing, getting feedback so they improve, and then delivering on a deadline. Because one of the problems of the swamp of hunting for startups funding is that you go and talk to 100 people and the feedback is, no, thanks. And so then we go to the investors, and we would like the investors to be writing more checks, but we would like them to be writing smarter checks. So how do we get more smarter angels, and how do we get stronger startups? And so somewhere in the process of all of this, we have a bunch of angel investors. They're actually writing checks to the companies that they find interesting, but they have this nasty timeline. They don't continue writing checks forever. They write the checks till they're done writing checks, and sometimes that might be faster than you think. And so if they're very active in the ecosystem and then they stop, someone needs to be adding more investors into that ecosystem. So how do we do that? How do you produce local angel investors in your local ecosystem so that they go forward? Well, in the United States, 90% of the United States is not allowed by law to angel invest. So 10% of the population can angel invest. And of those that invest, only 1% actually do. So if we take that same equation and we take 10% of the Spanish population and we ask, of that 10%, would 1% of them write checks? So 0.1% of the population, would they write checks? Well, when I've talked to the people in the event this week, for the most part, people have a negative feeling about there actually being that group of people writing checks. So we have a sense that there's room to grow the number of people that could write checks. So what's the mechanism by which the people who could write checks would learn to write checks and do things, right? Do I go to the deep end of the pool and jump into the pool and in the process get very cold and have a hard time swimming out? Or do I do something like swimming lessons? And so I want to tell you about what we're doing, which is the Startup Investor Accelerator. And the reason that we're doing this is because we're driving an economic development program. We're trying to get higher prosperity in the local economies. We're trying to activate local solutions to local problems. We're trying to activate the ecosystem so the community comes together and does things as a community that wouldn't have been possible if everybody's trying to do things by themselves. And so we do that through an education program, sort of like instead of the chemistry class where they tell you what's going on in the chemistry thing, we're in the chemistry lab business. We give you all the chemicals, and then you can blow up things in the lab. And so this Angel Accelerator is what we're doing. So this is a little bit of a complicated slide, but we take a whole bunch of people and we organize them. We try to get 40 investors and 50 companies. We run them through a structured process. In the process, this goes through a funnel where people have to stand and deliver, and in the process, that standing and deliver forces them to say out loud what they think, which then the other people say, what? And so in that conversation, everybody gets a little bit stronger. And in the end, we get a bunch of investors that understand angel investing better than they would have any other way. And we get a bunch of companies, all of the companies, got asked hard questions, and those companies then make progress. So we've had that happen. Someone comes to the angel conference in Seattle. They have a bad idea. They don't get anywhere. They come back the next time. They have a better idea. Don't get anywhere because they don't have a team. So they come back the next time. They have a team and a better idea. They get to the finals. They don't get funded. They come back the next time, got the team, got the contract, company's functional. They get invested, and now they're worth a couple of million, or double-digit millions. And I'm thinking of two particular companies when I say that. So excuse me. We've been running this for a while. We're on 22. So in the fall, we'll run Seattle Angel Conference 22. And we've been running some experiments now that we've run it for a decade. Can we do something that's sector-specific? So we did a health one, and we're trying to understand how to produce health investors in Seattle. And that worked pretty well. We finished that in March. And then we did a transatlantic one. And so that transatlantic one I'm going to tell you a little bit more about. But because we've been running this for a decade in Seattle, we have 500 new investors who have written some checks beyond ours. We've got 8 out of the 9 angel groups have alumni in our program. Some of those groups, 2 of those groups, have formed around our alumni, so they're primarily our alumni in our program. And 200, if you look through all the groups, about 200 people are actively writing checks. In fact, some of those are writing on the order of 100 checks already. They've been doing it for a decade, but now they're in 100 checks. So that's 10 companies a year for a decade, and they've got 100 investments. And we have 2 groups that are formed, two angel groups, but we also have 2 venture groups that were formed, a Series A group and a micro VC group that came out of our alumni coming together and being excited about investing enough to change their careers and become professionals in the investing process. And so that's all worked. When we look at the first 5 years of our program, those companies, most of them didn't go where we thought they would go, like most angel investments. One of them sort of alive, 2 of them are very alive in the double-digit millions, and 1 of them went public. So that's about average what you expect from an angel investment. And just to be clear about angel investing is not investing about one company, it's about investing in a portfolio of companies. So that collection of 10 companies that happened in the first 5 years are meeting about the average of what's happening. And the returns that we're getting are slightly better than the average that we see. We did the transatlantic one. We had 25 investors. Ophir was our lead investor and played the role and learned how to be a stronger lead investor. And everybody else learned something about this. We picked out of 4 finalists. We ended up going down and picking one of those. Bluana is a Romanian company that does vegan sashimi. So we're about to learn about sashimi in a way we didn't know before. And of those, they were spread out. We had Israeli, Romanian, US, and UK finalists, and we had companies from all over Europe, Canada, and the US. But we built 1 investment. So now the question for the investors is, how do I get 20 investments, and how do I build that as a rational mechanism? So this builds an amplifier in your ecosystem. One person stands, writes a $5,000 check. That gets turned into $5 million worth of individual checks that are going. That gets turned, because of the groups that were created, into 80 million. This is what happened in Seattle. I believe that can happen in any ecosystem that comes together to focus on the process. And in the process, what we're doing is, entrepreneurs start companies, they get funded by angels, the company makes success, it exits. Now we have more money, we have angels that then do this again, and we build a virtuous cycle of this process. We can make the ecosystem go faster if we increase the number of investors, we drive the frequency of their investments up so that they're not writing one check a year, but maybe a little bit more. We increase the size of their portfolio so they're getting a better chance of having a success in their mix, and decrease their check size. So we're not trying to write $100,000 checks, we're trying to write $5,000 checks, but a lot of $5,000 checks. As a group, we now write $100,000 checks to the companies, but we write $5,000 as individuals, and that helps spread things out. And as a process of doing that, we help the other companies that are coming in to acquire those companies a little bit faster. So we're doing this again. We're going to run the program in September. We'll decide in December. So I would like to ask you, somewhere around you, there's somebody who could be an angel investor where a $5,000 check doesn't make them unhappy. If they burned it on fire and threw it away, they wouldn't be unhappy. Those people can think about angel investing, and they should think about how they're going to engage in that process. In the startup world, there's a bunch of startups that at the early stage where they're just about to make revenue, or they make a little bit of revenue and they're thinking about outside. And so we want to get those two groups of people together and have them learn together about how to do this. So let's start a conversation in this community about how we might be able to get more of that activity happening. And then perhaps, if everything works well in the fall, we'll have a program locally in Andalusia. And if you're curious, come find us and we'll tell you about all of our programs. Thanks very much.
Thank you so much, John. John Sechrest, thank you so much. So interesting, the program. As he said, you are the chemistry lab. You
Yes.
mix all the chemicals.
Right.
It's not like any program you have ever seen, because there's no such thing as, you're pretty innovative in that sense.
Right.
So there you go, all the information. Mossy Ventures, well, the team is here in the second row, I believe. So join them. You're going to stay around, John.
Yeah, absolutely.
And he's around, so let's take advantage. Thank you so much to John and the team for all that interesting information about this super program. Let's see, maybe as he was saying, the spring being in Andalusia. Who knows? Let's hope so.